You'll make it funny.
Don't put it all in one place.
It'll make it funny. Well, we need it funny. So.
We need some AC though, I mean. Not looking forward to this.
I thought it was over. Oh, one more.
It should be.
Could be.
Should be done now.
Oh man, I'm done with my other class pretty much.
Really?
I just have one exam, which is going to be posted tomorrow. You want to take that for me? No.
Well, that test is pretty easy.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Half the test is the directional stuff.
Yeah, I figured. He actually didn't even he just went over it too. And he's going to be gone for 2 weeks, so pretty much no lecture. He's just giving an exam.
What office is that?
What office? 801?
No, in Fedibet.
Oh, it was in exploration and production.
No, but in donde?
¿En dónde? In Maturín. Have you been there?
No, never to the east.
In the east side of the...
Did you go to Rudy's?
Not today.
Sounds really good.
That's an old Rudy's class.
No, I went to take a walk up there today.
Rudy's pretty good.
Holly's super tough down to my family in New Zealand, you know. And my wife's sitting there playing with one the other day and squeezes it and breaks it. I don't think this damn thing's 10,000 miles. I'm gonna break it. What's up? Don't lie to me.
Here's your dime pack.
What do you use?
Might have stick the bubble down.
Back in 1920. Yep, I told her about that after we did our test. May, June. Yeah.
So what was the best thing people did today? We drove in from Austin.
I did. I almost got killed in a roundabout. That was fun.
Hey, roundabout? Where is the roundabout?
It's, I'm trying to down the street. It is over there.
Here?
Yeah. It's like, I need the streets. You know how you take that one way past the Starbucks? And you-
I think I know which one you're talking about. The
It's a
one.
real roundabout?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like back by, there's a couple apartment complexes over there.
Yeah, is this the one right next to the visitor center on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't
Whatever
remember the name of that
place
road, but it is confusing.
Anyways, this lady is just flying 60 and just goes right in front of me.
Yeah, I know that one well.
Well, they use a lot of roundabouts where we are, and I'm the worst roundabout driver, because the whole goal is to not slow down, right?
Oh yeah, just keep going.
Like
And,
NASCAR, you know? NASCAR.
Yeah.
Out of turn.
Yeah,
Blasingame has Bayou.
yes, I want to be by yourself.
There's a roundabout in New Orleans at the mall that they placed the yield sign wrong. So there's a yield sign on the actual roundabout. So people get confused on what to do. So people who are in the actual roundabout will yield and they'll stop and everything's just gone.
Yeah. Well, our experience has been pretty good so far. There was a guy that goes to our church that had a smack up, and it turns out it's his fault. And you're not going to believe this, but in New Zealand you don't have to have insurance.
I've heard that.
What?
I mean, I'm sure it's coming, but you don't have to have
How
insurance.
they do
So
it.
he destroyed this other guy's car. He had insurance, the other guy didn't.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
They might pay for it,
They work well, people, they're so new to America that nobody knows how to operate.
Oh, roundabouts? Yeah, there's only one in Houston that I know of, over by the zoo, and that thing, somebody's gonna get killed, yeah. And it must be 50 or 60 years old, but I'm like, holy hell.
They're putting them all over Austin for all the bikers.
Yeah, it's easy for that. In France, they have them pretty much there's almost no stoplight.
Yeah, they're nice.
It's just roundabout. I remember driving there and thinking I was gonna die.
What I wanna know is how anybody finds out where anything is in France, cause all the signs, go different directions. And you're like, if you've never been here before, there's no way you figure out which way to go.
Oh, they use TomTom,
Yeah, of course. But still, you haven't seen some of those roads. One guy was using a TomTom. We were over in Cannes, and he's like, I think we're on the right road. Nope, it's down there. Well, looks like it's gonna be a login fiasco. Sorry about that. I don't know if I
Class-related question.
Anything you want.
How
We gotta
would
speak
you,
so everybody can pick it up then.
how would you suggest studying for all this? 'Cause I'm
Probably
going
tomorrow
over
we'll
this.
go through that.
Okay.
I honestly had expected to be better prepared to discuss this, but, a couple of Monday things hit me, and one of them was somebody who turned in, they might be in this class, so to say, but I had a late assignment that had to be graded, for graduation. I didn't realize that it would have been handled just as easily later in the week or next week, but I get really paranoid because I never want to be the reason somebody doesn't graduate. There's a set of, Texas A&M still uses paper for grade changes, and it has to go through like this chain of
Really?
events, and it's not a fun thing to do.
Right there.
Anytime you're gonna have a grade change, you're talking about at least probably 3 business days, and sometimes more, because they usually just let them stack up, and one person signs them all. I'm talking about here, I'm talking about the dean's office, I'm talking about the registrar's office, but they get real excited when it's graduation time, so we get taken care of. That's why I sent out an email asking if anybody was graduating, because if they're not, and they've got some catastrophic issue, because after I said we'll take more time, because I swear to you, on Saturday I was like, why is this class end on the 15th and not the 8th? You're thinking, you should know this, idiot. I'm not the instructor of record. I didn't get notification, So, I was like, oh, another week. And then I announced it, and I get deluged with emails, oh, we got vacation, we got this, we got that. So, on my tombstone will be the quote of my career. Education is the only investment where the customer does not want their money's worth.
Amen.
So, I'm like, I'll give you another week of my time. But we got everybody worked out. So.
Yeah, but
You have a fun last name.
Thank you. How can we make an anagram or something out of your name?
The anagram name, that's good.
Hmm?
Yours is Pat.
Yeah, or bat.
Right, but
I'm trying to think of what Jeffrey is backwards. I'd have to write it down. Sam is Ma. But your name is like 27 letters long.
yeah.
Yeah. I had some of you guys before.
How do you go about daily conversation if your name is so long? We
Well,
have
Thai
names.
is, this is you, I'm gonna prepare him for it, but Thai is a language you almost sing, so.
You got 20 letters, but that
You
only
use them all
translates to-
repeatedly.
translates to only 2 or 3 syllables.
Yeah. I had Manpan Santabansko, I had Visit Likitupen, and then I had Sampong Kwakwanchong. And Sampong, he was amazing. He was in the Corps. He hated me. He was an undergrad in this room, in fact, man. He's probably listening, you know. But he then did his master's with me. But I remember he was in a class with me, and he made a less than desirable grade. And he came to my office, and he told me, made his pitch, and I said, well, you're dead in the middle of the other group, you know, so that's the grade you're going to get. And he goes, I want grade X. And I said, well, you're going to get grade Y. He literally goes, yay! I think he's like a general now, you know, so I better be nice to him.
No, that's okay.
Those were good days.
Highland don't
You're never going to do that to an instructor, are you? You're thinking all those military guys. You don't like them.
Oh, I do have a rank. I do have a rank. So
Oh, did you're not a general, are you?
No.
That would be nice.
Sergeant? Lieutenant?
He's
Second lieutenant?
probably,
Major? Captain?
probably shut up. Anything I say, this one's going to be like a ricochet. I'll get hit with my own bullet. Come on! All right, who wants to take the plunge? We'll give it one more minute. And if it doesn't come up, you'll log in. Do you have a big profile?
No,
All of those movies? Looks like you're healing, not very well.
Healing, not infected, I'm good.
Well, affected or afflicted?
Both.
Ah. Oh, no.
No.
Well, maybe it is.
Oh.
Nope.
Give it one more minute. Everybody has to tell an unpleasant story about themselves. You may start, Jeffrey.
Past?
Generally, stories refer to the past, but I'd be more than happy to hear one that refers to the future. You okay, Sam?
No, I was making a comment, the class that I missed 2 weeks ago, and I was watching it all throughout the weekend, and I just, you know, because I've been a part of the class, so I know who's who and who you're talking to, and it's hysterical.
Well, somebody told me today, politely, that we need to focus our time, so I'm going to be that judge. That we have 11 hours more, and it's like watching War and Peace, whenever you and I get into it. Or maybe Dr. Zhivago. All right.
Dr. Zhivago.
You don't know Dr. Zhivago?
I know War and Peace is Leo Tolstoy's masterpiece. Yeah, that was other night. Pretty sure.
This is Dr. McCain's fault. He put his mojo on it.
Which one of you is older?
Me. Can't you tell?
Are you in his course? Because in 2005, you had black hair, and he still has black hair.
Yes. You guys would have enjoyed Dr. McCain 30 years ago. I took him for the first class he offered in this university. This is being recorded, so I'm going to zip my mouth.
Oh, wow, you had...
Let's just say,
him as a...
we didn't have anything to go on like you do.
How did he do it all?
Hmm?
Like he was a general, brigadier.
It was reserves.
Yeah, but still, I mean, that's a high rank for reserve.
Yeah.
Like
He's
it's
a
very
pilot too,
unusual.
right?
I don't know. I never really talked to him about it. You ready? Going ahead and hit return.
Dr. what? Dr. what?
After what?
No, what you said, Dr. what?
I don't know what
That's another language.
War and Peace, and then...
Dr.
Zhivago.
Zhivago.
soccer.
So while he's logging in, we had a project one time that we were trying to initiate in Mexico, and the genius faculty member at the time who had made the connection found the one, it's too old for you guys to remember, but let's just say it was sort of what's a bad con man movie that you can think of? So, it's awful. So most of us saw through it, but anyway, so we ended up with this guy who was acting as an agent, but nobody on the U.S. side or the Mexican side took him seriously. We sat outside people's offices for hours, waiting to meet with them, and you know, went and stayed in all the fanciest hotels and that sort of thing, and we paid for it, and that was good. But he had said he had a degree from Columbia University, and one of the professors that was with us from another area had done like 25 years at Columbia. And he goes, well, tell me, Dr. Sanchez, you know, who was your advisor at Columbia? And he goes, oh, you never know. And he's like, well, I was there for 25 years, maybe I would. And he had just had enough, and he didn't let it go. And he goes, well, come on, you know, you can tell me. And he goes, well, he was in a business college, and you were in, you know, geoscience. You guys would have never known each other and that sort of thing. He goes, well, you know, being who I am, I got around a lot. And he goes,
Dr. Jones!
No, he goes, it was Dr. Zhivago Waffle. And my friend goes, what? Zhivago Waffle? And he goes, I've never heard of that guy. And he goes, well, you wouldn't because he's dead. And he goes, regardless, I knew how that story was going to end. He goes, you didn't go to Columbia. He goes, oh, I did. You know, and I keep thinking Columbia Records or Columbia, the country in South America or something. But is there maybe there's a Columbia U? Oh, that was funny.
Oh, so this is not something else?
No, Dr. Zhivago is a famous movie. It was about the Russian Revolution and how the rich became peasants.
No,
It was
like
a very
Animal Farm.
difficult time.
So it's like Animal Farm.
No, it was more just misery.
Yeah, the October Revolution.
And then there, of course, is the Tina Turner Revolution, Jeffrey.
Turner.
Yeah. Sam, too, is wondering what's coming next.
Tina Turner, who is that?
Forget it.
You understand, these classes are my comedic relief from studying.
I tell you what, look up. No, I'm not going to do it. It's being recorded. Somebody's going to start following. Whatever. And I want to shave so bad, but my son won't let me.
Why? You're obviously beating him. There's no way he's got more.
He's got these weird sideburn things here that are kind of creepy for a 15-year-old.
You were always clean shaven. And like,
Trust me, I want to be now, you know. Oh, nice. Where is this?
no. Oh, the pictures will switch, and each time they do, another sound comes on. So you should change that.
Just a good thought. This is nice.
Thank you. There's no
Is
windows.
this in the web?
Not at all. No.
That's a desktop picture that Microsoft puts on.
It's a Microsoft thing.
Yeah. I think Bill Gates in every picture. Good God, this is worse than me. You don't mind if I have windows plastic, do you? So this education project I'm working on, I asked for access to more of the Dropbox area. I don't know what the full size of it was, but it was running at 500 kilobits per second on a machine here. And it took 2.5 hours to update. I think sometimes we get a little lazy with bandwidth. This doesn't look good. Did I do something wrong?
No.
I think I'm gonna ask him to create like a naked profile for me. That didn't come out right. The profile with no stuff. So I was gonna take my buddy, the IT manager, out to lunch, but I kinda got in a hurry. I didn't forget about him, but he's not happy with me right now. He probably won't help me. Even if I was nice. I promise I'll log in early tomorrow. Tomorrow we got McCain, right? So I gotta be.
No.
No.
Today was there.
Oh, really? So we could have met today.
Yep.
Oh, I know why I didn't. I mean, yes, you're right.
Yeah, we have class on Wednesday at 2 to 3:30, and then our test on Friday at 2 to 3:30.
I'm sure you'll be fine.
I was just telling you what time we had the results.
No, you just won.
I'm
I
not-
didn't put anything on Friday.
I'm watching your back.
Yes, Friday. What'd you do to this machine?
I don't know.
Why is it so slow?
Yeah,
Oh, it's fast.
I think you put some Venezuelan mojo on it.
Should be pretty tough.
Good God, this is slow.
It's almost like a Windows classic computer.
Jeffrey, I really wonder how I made it this far in life without you.
Me too.
Look up the movie Four Feathers. The lead character in the book, or in the movie, or in the book, was saved by a slave. And when asked why he saved him, he said, because. Who am I to question what God puts in my way? See any similarity in that relationship here? No, I don't think so. All right. Oh, man. Well, I was the 10th box.
Yeah, I was wondering why you were cutting
Shut up. I mean, thank you for your generous input. All right, we left off here, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah.
More or less? I like that.
No, it's done.
Thank you. Oh, Jeffrey. So, we scroll back one as a reminder. Exponential case, can it be derived? Yes, no? Yes, no, maybe. Good. So we have a radio button, right? We'll pick that one. Can this be derived? Yes, no, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can this be derived?
No.
Sort of.
No.
I guess I should give it a little wiggle room over there. Okay. And this one assumes a liquid. What does that mean? Means the viscosity, compressibility, formation volume factor, they're all constant. Mechanical engineer? So, chemical? Math? Don't know.
Chemical.
Chemical.
Mechanical.
Good. Explain compressibility
Of what?
of anything, of a fluid. 1 over rho d rho dv. Don't remember? Compressibility, C is equal to 1 over rho d rho dv. The constant temperature. You remember that? Isothermal coefficient of compressibility?
My brain is like a vacuum right now.
Really?
Yeah.
That means it's bringing things in.
Exactly, but there's nothing in there to begin with.
Yes, Jeffrey.
Question, why did you put the, radioactive symbol in the Y in harmonic when it should be M, given the
Well,
arrow?
it's a good question, and we'll come to it in a minute. It's not exactly, the harmonic decline is actually exactly the form that you have for, the variable rate case. In other words, when you use rate divided by pressure drop versus material balance time, you get exactly the, harmonic decline, which was confusing at first, because people thought we were advocating a harmonic decline, but we weren't. It's just a special case of that. So, probably to be fair to Jeffrey, we'll just put don't know, don't know, don't know. How's that? Okay. Now, what about this one? How is this derived? Can this be derived for gas? Let's actually do that. So, gas, yes, no, maybe.
Yes.
Okay. It's actually a maybe. Okay. What about black oil?
No.
Yes, no, maybe. Oh, we don't need to repeat that, sorry. Any ideas? Not really. Okay, what about solution gas?
How can something maybe be derived?
I'll explain. You really want to know?
I don't know what kind of box that's gonna open up.
It's going to be the kind of box that 3 days from now people will be writing us nasty emails, but it's worth talking about.
I'll just take your word for it.
No, we got to prove it. Okay, solution gas is yes, but with an asterisk, sort of. Okay. They were able, Raghavan and Camacho were able to show that the hyperbolic could be derived for the gas case, so you got to go kind of hold your head to one side and, think about funny things and stand on one foot, that kind of thing. The conditions are an accident if they're met. It's not going to be something easy. Okay. So, Sam 2 has asked a great question, and has, with all teachers, we list the questions. So we will go and we will address Sam's question. It is in the references PA folder, and let me drag this down, get rid of it.
Couple questions.
Like that. Okay, Mr. Fekovich here is, what's in the preprint this week? Okay. This is what paper sheets will look like. And he was trying to derive all this stuff. And so he came along with this idea that he could derive, based on some sort of theory, actually it would be sort of along this line, and he assumes that PWS is equal to 0, so it's total open flow. The pressure at the bottom of the well has to be equal to 0. He also makes another assumption, which is not obvious here, but if you come down, deep into the earth, see how crappy that is? monstrosity here, and this is for the oil case, pardon me. And this is for the oil case, pardon me. And this is for the gas case, rotated. Alright, so what he did was he proposed, he fell in love with this rate equation, this equation about, it's called the deliverability equation. This is the first equation we talked about. So he assumed that's correct, okay? This is a great question. You're a mathematician, not an engineer, okay? So this particular form and this particular form, this one's in pressure squared, that one's in pressure, okay? Now, it's actually not the right form. Am I right, Johannes? Johannes, yeah?
I don't know.
Do you remember this equation? It's supposed to have Z in it.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be P over Z, the compressibility factor. He assumed that Z was equal to 1. Okay? Assuming Z is equal to 1 makes it an ideal gas. It's also impossible. It is a condition that can never be met. But as a mathematician, you would appreciate that once he did that, he could substitute the first equation into the second one, or vice versa, and he could derive that mess that you see below. Okay? So here is an example of someone doing a two-step. Okay? The first step is that he assumed that a major component of the equation just went away. And I realize this is being recorded. I realize I owe Mike Petrovich a lot. He helped me in my career and sort of made my life miserable. He's the reason that all of my early work goes down instead of up. It was going up, and I received a phone call from him that whenever I was first reading the stuff on production analysis, I made it just like well test analysis. If you're familiar with software, it was more like the log-along plot than the so-called Blasingame plot. He called me up and he said, you need to flip that plot upside down, boy. Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you.
Wait, why?
Because he was the king of decline curves, and decline data is supposed to go down, not up. I was trying to treat it like well test analysis, and well test analysis is based on pressure drop. Pressure drop always increases, rate always decreases. They're just mirror images of each other in layman's terms. But it created a whole cat's cradle of different types of interpretation, which is fine, because now we have more interpretations than we would have had the other way, and that's great. I think that was a very, he didn't mean to do me a favor, but he did me a favor. So I got a lot of respect for the guy. He hired a friend of mine for a summer internship, took a guy like Jeffrey, made him, almost an Einstein, although he's still kind of like Jeffrey a little bit, and, he did a lot of good. He set the stage for interpreting a lot of things that people hadn't done before. He was truly a trailblazer, or is. He's still alive, of course. So P over Z, he takes and he chops the Z off. Mechanical engineering doesn't bother you. It's an appendage. It's a pinky toe. I can get along without it. Chemical engineers. What happens when you cut out the Z factor from a material balance equation? It's no longer a material balance equation.
Yeah.
Your bucket now has a hole in it. And maybe not just a hole, but a black hole. You don't know what it's going to do. All right? So mathematically, we give this to Sam, and he goes, oh, I can rearrange this and solve it. Poof, there it is. There's all the cases that he chose to generate. And not one of them really looks like what happens in the field. Okay. So what he did later in the second paper was he showed, well, what he wanted to show. He also did one for liquid, and he didn't cheat quite as much there, but it didn't turn out that one as much as you see it. Okay, so this is the famous Petrovich type curve, and you can push back if you don't like that. We can go this way. He was sitting in a class like this some 40 years ago, something like 1968 or 69, I guess it would have been 45 years ago. It was across the street in our old building. And he recognized that all these curves had the same shape. They're all exponential decline. And so he sat there during class, somebody showed this, and he did this. He shifted them all on top of each other. So he took all of these, all right, let's do a better this, ready? You got the snippet tool somewhere here, everybody?
Yeah, there's for it.
Where is it, up top?
Go to the,
Is it under accessories?
You switch up, use the search function before.
Search? I don't search for nothing.
There we go.
Searching for when. Okay. A little crooked, but that's all right. So are we. You guys pick up a cold?
oh, like 100 degrees.
I know. I think Jeffrey made me have a cold.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was psychosomatic. The emphasis on the word psycho. Yeah, somebody's bad too. All right, Cam 1 and Cam 2. What do I do now? I make a copy and I paste, right?
Mm-hmm.
And dang it,
Format.
where's the thing? Always got to be doing this. Okay? So I slide all of these. Did it do it? No. All right, I'll slide this one, all right? So there's that one on top of it. Make another copy. Now I'll slide this one on top of it. Make another copy. I'll slide that one. See how they're slightly adjusted vertically and horizontally? But eventually, I'll get them all laying on top of that. That's what he did. You can say boring. All right? And when he finished, sliding all those curves, this is what he got. All of them laid here, and then all of those things got pushed that way. So if we go back to PowerPoint, if we keep doing this over and over again, what's going to happen? We're going to create a series of tails over here, and all of these are going to overlay. I guess it's this one. It's eventually. Just keep doing it over and over again. Is there a theoretical reason? Of course. It's a pseudo-steady-state flow solution. We'll talk about a little bit more about this in a minute, but that was his contribution. And by doing that, we're able to take a data set on the same grid and put it on top of it. You don't believe it? Good. I like it when people don't believe it. And where's that snipping tool thing? So you wish you were back at Rice now? A little bit? You can tell me.
Probably not, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Bunch of pointy heads?
Too abstract, maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
abstract. Okay, there's your data set, okay? And now we go, huh?
He's debating quantum mechanics.
That's a debate. I forgot, we gotta do this the hard way. Alright, so what I'm gonna do, and you don't peek too much, Jeffrey.
What are you doing exactly? What are you doing?
I cut the, other graph out, the one with the data on it. Okay? We're 62, right? Hopefully they're the same size. No?
Big transparent.
I'll do that, thank you. I wanted to do some other things first, but since you mentioned it, I'll go ahead and do that for you. Alright? Something's alright. Okay, that's fine. Those two line up, more or less. I'm just checking. It's not perfect, but it's close. Okay, so I come over here and I lay the data on this thing. You guys don't like that. Here, I'll make it easy. I'm going to show you how it writes graph plots. What's Blasingame rule number 0?
Cheat.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to make a nice right box here. What's your favorite color?
Red.
I wasn't talking to you, but that's okay. Neil, no comment?
Blue.
Or use red. We'll make the points blue, how's that? As you can see, this is not a perfect rendering. There's a little shade problem, which Sam too is having a hard time with. I can see that already. It's supposed to be perfectly lined up. What the heck, right? You know, perfection is the enemy of good enough. You guys remember that when I give your assignment. Sam, too, what's the worst job you ever had? Other than right now. Okay, so, you want blue? Give me black. Keep talking to me. Not kind of making long
logging jobs. Been on a couple of long logging jobs.
I didn't know you were a logger. I think there's another point right there. There is now. Huh?
I'm not a logger. I was observing and learning.
For what?
For work.
What work?
Working in Austin at the moment.
At the moment you're here. Are you trying to deceive us?
No, I'm a distance learning student, but I
Really?
came on campus for the summer.
I guess that's one way of doing it. Okay, so I made myself a little snip, right? Oh man, I want to get rid of this. You were disturbing me. Alright? So there's our plot. You like? You Now, Blasingame rule number 0. Jeffrey.
See?
Jeffrey, you're not gonna take 620 this year, are you?
No,
And they say there is no God.
I can always check it.
Yeah. You won't, you're much too kind of person, I think, no matter what they say. All right. Transparent? And that's how you match data. And that was Petrovich's very first type curve match. So as a symbolic gesture, we should all say thank you, Mr. Petrovich,
Thank you,
for doing that. Okay, as a point of discussion, this part of the plot over here is transient flow, and this part is boundary dominated flow. What do we get from transient flow? Permeability, skin, ... What do we get from boundary dominated flow? N or G, the gas in place or oil in place, correct? Everybody okay with that? Now, Neil, this here is what they call the Romulan neutral zone. You know Romulan? Off of Star Trek? Remember that? So if you're on this side, you're Romulan. If you're on this side, you're Jeffrey. Okay, so Romulan, Jeffrey. So Romulan or Jeffrey. Alright? Little joke, sorry. Bad joke. Bad dog. Alright, so if you're on the left-hand side, that's transient. If you're on the right-hand side, it's boundary dominant. If you have no transient data, can you estimate reservoir properties? 3 options. Yes, no, or maybe.
No.
Continue voting.
No.
Yes, no, or maybe. It's an absolute no. Okay. How many data points did I show you in some of these pressure transient cases? Thousands? And there are millions. There are cases with millions. I can think of one, somebody sent me 30 million data points last year. Best 2-word question in the English language? So what? That's what you're all thinking, right, Sam?
Sure.
So, if you were going to estimate volume, you have these points, right? For volume, and you have these points for K, S, etc.
But your volume converts to the same.
Sorry?
But your curve, all the type curves convert into the same equation.
No, but over here, these are called the transient stems. This has skin factor, and this scale has permeability. Okay? But only if what? Sam number 2. Only if you have transient data. No transient data, no estimating permeability any. Okay? You guys understand? So in the case that invented estimating reservoir properties from production decline data, how many transient points are there? 1, 2, 2.5. We use millions of data points over here in pressure transient analysis. And Petrovich comes along and says we can do it with just a few production points. What's your opinion of that? It's a major moment in your career. Do you believe it or not?
No.
Next. Next. Next.
Possible, but it's not gonna be very reliable.
How are the points aligned?
In other words, you should have picked a better example, which he did in the next paper. But in this one, you guys want another little historical perspective? I know we're wasting valuable class time, but it's ours to waste. Remember, old Tom is crazy like a fox.
Right. So this
As
was,
in, you may see this again. Comprendes, amigos? All right, so we got all this stuff down here, doesn't mean anything. You're gonna say something, Jesse.
I was going to confirm the MPE number. It is 004.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. All right. Can anybody read this?
Well,
read it.
This is for well, which one? Well 13, field A. Everybody paying attention? So where is well 13?
Right. It's near the 121.
Okay? So, from decline curve analysis, he estimates KH to be 40 something. From a pressure buildup analysis, he estimates it to be 40 something. Comments, Sambo? You think he might have been a little biased? Or did he do this independently? The world may never know.
Coincidence.
Sorry?
Coincidence.
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 Oh, thank you. What is field A? Who did Pessimist work for? What year was this? 1968, 69. You want to know what field A was? It was the ecophysics. What's the largest field in the North Sea? When was it discovered? Who did the production testing? Did he hit the lottery? Yes. They had to have estimates of formation properties, of deliverability. They took their team and they scoured over every bit of data they could get. They had no idea what they found. How big is that? 6 billion barrels. That's with a B.
Right. How big is that?
That's bigger than the East Texas oil field up in East Texas. It would probably rank in the, well, you've got Cantarell, you've got East Texas fields, you've got, I don't think any of the California fields are quite that big. You've got Frio Bay, which is 20, you've got a couple of others up there that might be on the order of that. If it were in the Western Hemisphere, it'd probably be in the top 5.
That's conventional.
Okay. It's a chalk, fairly high permeability. It's 0.33 millidarcy according to this. You can't read it, but it's right here. But, and they all had negative skin. How'd that happen? What happens when you complete a well in a chalk reservoir.
Formation class.
Well, part of it. They probably also fractured it. They probably also acidized it to get flow going. I mean, just about anything you can imagine, they probably did here. This is a monster. Oh, sorry, I forgot the Orinoco. But what's the largest conventional field in Venezuela? It wouldn't be that big.
No, it won't be. The Soria.
But the Sierra Negro, whatever that group of four, would be bigger than this. But that's all heavy oil. In order to produce that, you have to produce the reservoir with you. Yeah. So as a historical note, thank God for Petrovich. He not only figured out how to develop Ecopus, and maybe that's too big of a story, but he definitely did the reservoir engineering behind it. And in the meantime, created a whole new area of analysis. Good. Good for him, good for us. Everybody's happy, right?
So what of the data that using only 3 points?
There had to be someone who remembered that. So the question is, what of the data in only using 3 points? I wish I could tell you that it's okay. And like I said, you may see it again. But best guess, it's an aberration. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Do you know why there's only 3 points?
It's very time is very small.
You're looking at it. Focus on the graph. Focus on the graph. Focus on the graph. Focus on the graph.
Oh, you can only take so much production data.
12, 11, 10, 9.
One
Okay.
per month.
It was monthly data.
Right.
You cannot build the universe with monthly data. This would not be pressure transient analysis if it's monthly data. Very, very good question. The transient passes in what?
2 days.
A bit more than a month, which at that variability is about right. Now, if this were a shale well, the variability were 1 million times smaller, at least a couple 100,000 times smaller, what would happen is all that data would be displaced back 3 or 4 log cycles. But that's not the case here. Really, really good point about how many data points. Okay, so we'll leave this file, and we'll go to the next one, which is where? You gotta be joking. It's gotta be in here. Oh, there it is. Sorry. Okay, this is his companion paper that was written a few years later. Still the same old stuff. It looks a lot sexier. Same old curve. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, this was his explanation of fracturing into a naturally fractured reservoir. Here's another case. You can see some of these do have transient data, and so on and so on. And then you start to get more cases with more transient data. How can you tell when it's transient? What's a simple explanation? Concave up is transient, concave down is boundary dominated. Concave up is transient, concave down is pseudo-steady state or boundary dominated one. And you'll see that he went on ahead and he threw in here the exact same example I showed you the other day. In fact, I never even paid attention to this. My subconscious must have picked it up. He made a B factor of 3 and fitted this line, RE over RW 10 line through it right there. Just to show that the only way that a B factor of 3 could exist is if in fact it's back here, not over here. And I showed you that the other day. So this is, Petrovich got up on his chair and screamed and hollered that the only way B could be greater than 1 is transient flow, and he's right. For everything I can think of, he would be right. So we keep scrolling through this paper, and eventually we find our old friend edit his text to the screen. Keep looking, keep looking, keep looking, keep looking, keep looking, keep looking. He loves to write big papers, by the way. Here's some of this deliverability data. And here's this West Virginia gas well A. Okay? And you can see he has a little bit more transient data. How many this time? Maybe 6? Yes.
This isn't bothering me, but did Arps derive this equation from first principles?
No, Arps just wrote a compilation paper. Other people along the way wrote these. One of the things that Arps did do, and it's not clear to us now, although we could assume that he did derive the exponential, but he gave some criteria under which equations behave, and he said that for the exponential that you had to be above the bubble point, which is true. That would be a black oil above the bubble point, and that condition would be met. But he didn't show he would not have had the means to demonstrate that at the time. It probably, I want to be gentle and say it probably would have been a coincidence. There may be a couple of cases which he could have proven, but I don't know. Neil, you can raise your hand.
No, right.
All right, so is everybody okay with this well? Again, concave up, and then concave down. So this well has only a little bit of transient data as well, maybe 6 or 8 points. That's life, Jen. That's what it was back then.
What is that RD over?
RD over RW is a trick. What he did, whenever he moved all those curves on top of each other, he pushed the RD over RW curves backwards, okay? So what happened is he created a correlation. He didn't call it that, but that's what it was. So if we go back to his original paper, and we look at the so-called horsetail graph, what he did was he scooted all of the boundary-dominated flow curves on top of each other, okay? So he took all of these curves, as I showed you before, and put them on top of each other. The only way he could have done that, Sam, was if then this stuff that was left over got pushed back to the left, okay? So he took this curve right here, traced it, and there's more of it. This one traced it, this one traced it, this one traced it. You want me to show you? I'll use different colors. So he took this curve, this curve, and this curve, and now I've run out of colors. But there's still a lot left, okay? There's still a bunch back here. All right? So then he took those 3 curves, and look, he overlaid them vertically and horizontally. And when he did that, this is what happened. Got this curve here. This curve here. I'm holding it blue. And then this curve here. You got that part now? So it's a correlation more than anything else. He wanted all of these curves to overlay.
How do you relate that?
So to do that, you had to shift the fingers back. And so all of those fingers are transient flow fingers. They would have been the same over here, these are the transient flow fingers, this thing here. You don't see it because it's gotta be pushed way back, there's another 3 or 4 log cycles over here, I think you may have given it, yeah, here you go. See this, where it does that? Okay. So if I were giving you this as an exercise, I might have you trace all of these and then overlay them, and when you do that, you would get this. You would overlay all of these here, and you would get this. That's how it works.
You read the permeability from.
The permeability is almost always the y-axis, and the volume or the characteristic length is almost always the x-axis. In this case, you have a family parameter, which is that group of variables up there, and that group of variables is essentially the size of the reservoir, RE, and RW prime, which is the skin factor. We didn't talk very much about that, but it's a way of collapsing all the curves together. So, in simple language, this is permeability, QD is a function of permeability, TDD is a function of permeability and volume, but you know the permeability from the QD, so it cancels out, and you solve that match for that. RE over RW is RE over RW prime, and that's RE over RW RW e to the minus S. So you solve that value for S, okay? Whenever you get your estimate of whatever that value is, when you overlay the data, that gives you both permeability and skin. Permeability because it tells you where you're located on the curve. So those are the things you can get from this. You can get volume, and you can get permeability, and you can get skin. Sam, number 2, really simple, quick question. Let's say that all of our data are on this trend. That's it. That's all the data we got right there. How do I estimate volume? Simple answer is you can't. Okay? You have no reference frame for volume. You'll get a volume estimate out of this calculation, but it's meaningless because
You haven't seen.
because all of these curves have the same character, and it can be slid to any one of them. And when you do that, you don't know which direction you're going here. So there will be there will be a unique match vertically, but there will not be a unique match horizontally. That's the problem. Okay? So if you're ever using RTA or Topaz software or anything else, and you only have transient data, what do, Johannes? You use it to analyze the transient portion, but you don't try to impose a boundary on it. And when people first started doing this, their inclination was to believe the numbers coming out of the computer, because the computer has a coordinate translation system, and it'll give you an answer. It's not the right answer because there's no data to support it. So one way to do it is to simply look at the end of the behavior, so you can reference the last data point and say that's a minimum volume. But we've kind of moved away from that. The one nice thing, what I like about RTA is that you're matching data against the model, and it's very clear and that sort of thing. But the one nice thing about the Kappa software is you're not matching against the model, you're running a simulator through the data each time. It's not quite obvious that that's what you're doing. So you have to specify all the elements of the model. And if you're not picking this up, then it doesn't exist. Again, remember, crazy like a fox. Okay, one last thing I'll show you, and then we'll get back into the groove here. One of the things that Petrovich did that at the time, I was a young man, I didn't really understand what the hell he was trying to tell us. See, here's some real data. There's some very high frequency data and that kind of thing. And you've got plenty of transient behavior there. Notice this is a very strong high B factor. All right? Everybody okay? What do you think of this? Figure 42. In this case, he took data from multiple fields. Same formation, the Monterey. Anybody recognize the name Monterey Shale? Yeah? You know where Monterey, California is. Do you recognize the name Monterey Shale? They've been producing out of the Monterey for 80, 90 years. It's probably an exaggeration, let's say 75. The Monterey Shale is probably the biggest untapped or minimally tapped hydrocarbon accumulation in the West. A lot of people have lost a lot of money on the Monterey. It's just not prolific. It's huge, but it does not produce high rates. Okay? So what Petrovich did is he took data from each one of these 5 fields and he overlaid them. What's he creating here? Isn't this an implicit model? If I take performance charts from everybody in this room, I rescale them so they're in the same log format, and I overlay them all, am I going to get a composite? Yeah. If there's some sort of diagnostic data that we can understand about each of us, it can be normalized, and we're all the same. It can be normalized to a common condition, which is exactly what he did here. He created what he called the Monterey type curve. I had a field project one time, and I didn't know what to do with the data. The data was not particularly good. Operator wasn't very careful. So I literally did what Petrovich did. I plotted 50-something wells on a, you know, whatever you want to call it, on a virtual graph, and overlaid them all. It was beautiful. There's 2 kinds of type curves. One is based on a reservoir model, which we've been looking at. The other is based on overlaying data upon itself and creating an average curve. You'll hear the 2 terms used interchangeably. Most people say it's a statistical curve when you're using data, and when you're using a model, they say type curve, but some use it the other way. Yes, sir.
Yeah, but with such an analysis, you'll get very good relative accuracy, that is to say precision, but you won't get accuracy without knowing the stable point within one of
Okay.
stable set within.
Let's take what Jeffrey said, everybody. No problem? Please, God, make this work. It's going to be close, people. I can't promise it's going to work exactly, but it's going to be close. It's not going to be scaled the same. I got to do a little bit of work first. Sam, what's your favorite number? 11? I don't think 11 is going to work. Let's try 87. How's that? Close. What's your next favorite number? 83? I just couldn't let you have it, could I? That's pretty close. Get in line, okay? Why don't these data lie on the curve, folks? This curve is for an exponential decline, constant pressure case. Everybody with me still?
Did they inject something?
Sorry?
Did they inject something?
Sort of. Good analogy. It's not injection, but that's all right. Man, me and the sniff stool are starting to become real friends. Jeffrey, what was your favorite TV show as a little kid?
Dragon Ball Z.
That's really scary. It's my son's favorite show. I know I don't want to introduce myself. In 62,
Your son's too young for Dragon Ball Z.
nice to watch. All that stuff comes back. All right, somebody say a little prayer. We're gonna have to reduce it some more. Favorite number, Sam?
64.
Damn, boy. Not bad. I think we might just give you a hug. How about 62?
No, 60.
Did you ever watch Beavis and Butthead, Jeffrey? Twice before your parents sentenced you to leave home or something? Don't touch me. Okay.
Whoa.
Scary, huh?
Yeah, what, how? What's the difference? This is
The Monterey Shale, for some reason, produces on a hyperbolic. It probably has to do with the producing mechanism. It's probably fluid expansion. Solution gas drive as well. I mean, the easiest way to explain it is the exponential decline is just liquid expansion, and hyperbolic is generally a very spongy oil. That must be what we're looking at. Could be a spongy formation and a spongy oil. Okay. You're probably never going to see this happen again.
But exponential is liquid blend.
Exponential is liquid, and hyperbolic is spongy. Could be gas. Okay. We'll talk about both here in a minute. Anybody having a cow over this? Pretty cool, huh?
It still doesn't answer my question.
Repeat your question, Joe.
Well, what I'm saying is that
This is about Dragon Ball Z.
the type curve that was generated from the data point, given that they overlay each other, they give very stable relative
Okay.
accuracy. But
But think about this. They're all the same, they're all from well performance data. If the wells are completed the same, and probably they're close, and the reservoir is relatively the same, it'll have different permeability, it'll have different this, different that. But relatively speaking, we're looking at different members of the same family being their performance being plotted on it. So it's not a surprise that they all overlay. It's not a surprise. What is a surprise probably is why it's so high, there's probably sponge in it. Something like this might be a Bakken, probably not an Niobrara. But some of these volatile-ish oils probably don't have enough energy for that. If you were ever to see a curve turn like that, that would be external energy. Okay? There must be external energy in order to cause a profile to do that. There's two kinds of external energy. One is the so-called Rubik's Cube or sugar cube model, where you have flow and fractures, and then you have flow and matrix. And, you know, that's the secondary part. This could be in the matrix flow. You don't usually see stuff like that. You'd have to have a very extreme case to see that. I did see two cases when I wrote a paper on this about 20 years ago. I did see two cases where you did actually see a recovery. One was a very long-term water flood. The other was an extremely old oil reservoir in the country of Colombia that had a natural water drive. And it took that long to push it. This is not something you're going to just, it's not, I mean, it's a logarithmic scale. You're not just going to see it pop up. But this one does not have that feature. Yes, sir.
I meant if, like, say, the permeability of estimate from one of the wells is say 10, and then from type curve, and from the curve you can say with almost absolute certainty that that this well over here, because they're not in the same, overlay, it'll be 20% bigger, but you wouldn't know, whether or not 10 number will be accurate enough, so that, that's what I meant, like the relative.
Okay, so what you're really saying is you'd like to analyze all 5 of these wells on this curve before doing this. And you'd like to establish their permeability, their skin factor, and their volume contact. That's fine. All Bekovich was trying to show is they all have the same shape. Same shape, same family, i.e. same reservoir, same completion, that sort of thing. Okay, that's what he was trying to say, same drive mechanism. Suffice it to say, tonight's lecture went a lot better than I thought it would. What I'm really trying to get across to you is that when we started doing this kind of work with data like this, everything worked out, thank God, but you're still looking at very, very little transient data. Okay. Production data analysis suffers in high reservoir systems. It suffers from infrequent monitoring. If you don't have daily data or even hourly data on high permeability systems, you're going to miss all these transients. I mean, that makes sense, right? You cannot estimate an intrinsic property of a system if that system has such high properties that it's already been, that whatever you're using, a pressure distribution, or you might say a pulse or a wave, I can't say those words, but something like that, if it's already passed through it, you can't see it, it's gone. Do you remember in mechanics class where they showed you the startup effect of 2 fluids at rest, or a fluid at rest between 2 plates, and they shift one, and how that happens? Well, it's a transient effect. The same thing's happening here. If it's already at a steady state, or in our case, pseudo-steady state, then you missed it. You're not going to see that transient. It's gone. Then you can stop the system and go look at it again. But in our case, when you stop, that's dollars. When you go, that's dollars in your pocket. When you stop, that's dollars deferred. Yeah.
So the couple of transient points that you have, how do you know that those are good?
You don't. That's a great question. Practically speaking, you can match them anywhere. I know that's what you're thinking right now. Is, you know, you could match those few points that are on the left anywhere. I'm not going to make it that hard. Okay?
How do you read the CD on the right again? It intersects.
Okay, so what we would have to do here is we would have to find something inside of a block like this. We take a mental push pin and poke a hole in it, and you'd read down to here and across to here, and then you'd read down to this grid and across to this grid if this is the one we're reading on.
Okay, so the same, yes.
Exactly the same principle.
As long as it's in the...
As long as it's in the box, yeah. As long as the coordinate system covers both. Technically, it doesn't really matter, but it's going to be a hell of a lot easier for you to keep that straight.
You need 2 poke holes in order to establish.
You would poke a hole through both pieces of paper, if this were paper. You okay? What's the matter? You don't like my simpleton approach?
Poke a hole or put it on a window.
Yeah. Is there an alternative to this?
Not usually.
Be more specific.
Nobody else came up with something similar?
Well, what I'm really asking is, you know there's an equation for boundary dominated flow. We're going to talk about some of that. There is an equation for transient flow, but with so few points, we've traditionally said, forget it. That's where I was going. If you could treat this just like a pressure transient test, and you could try to plot it on a semi-log graph and analyze it that way, what's going to happen? You're going to pull your hair out by the roots. It's going to make a mess. If we had the time and we're so inclined, we could digitize these points, convert them back, and you could look at them on a semi-log graph. You're just going to pull your hair out. It would have to be plotted as pressure drop, which you know, divided by rate, which you would have here, Actually, we don't have pressure drop, good point. All Effectivich's case are
Rate and time.
rates and times because he's purporting decline curve analysis. What I did is I came along and said, let's incorporate the pressure into it.
Well, his is rate transient analysis.
This is rate time analysis. Rate transient analysis is what I came up with when you put the pressures into it. So it's a good point, we can't do that. The only way we could do it would be to assume that the pressure drops constant, which is what he did. So all of his plots, all of his analysis assumed constant pressure. Really good point. Sorry I failed to mention that. That's later on in the notes. You guys have enough for tonight? Are you driving home?
No. On there.
So tomorrow at noon we can get back home?
Mm-hmm.
I think you probably had enough soak time on this. Or do you want more?
A lot to handle.
Sorry?
Just a lot to handle.
Well, all I want you to realize is that the evolution of this, the goal was to analyze data. And what Petrovich came up with was sort of like a crescent wrench. And when you have a crescent wrench, everything looks like a nut, you know? So he went around and he used that everywhere. And I said, well, that's true, but assuming constant pressure everywhere is not going to work. And he knew that, but he didn't know. When you read in his papers and he talks about reinitialization, that's when he's making a major change, either a time shift or a pressure shift. But there's an analytic way to do that. And it turns out it was really easy and it was really elegant. And that was what I did. So I came along with maybe not a crescent wrench, but a pair of channel locks or something like that, you know, or whatever the new Sears multi-wrench is. And all of these still have a problem. If you don't have transient flow, you cannot estimate reservoir properties. So I will not trick you. I will not give you a problem that doesn't work. I guarantee you that, or not intentionally anyway. So if I give you something and there's an answer expected, you'll know it. There are cases when the data simply does not justify an analysis. And at that point, you have to stop and you have to say, I can't do this. Because if you go and make an estimate of permeability with those 3 data points, or those 4 data points, let's put it this way, okay? So here is 10, and here is 100. And if we go and we look at the equation that Petrovich gives us in his papers, okay, so you're going to solve this equation right here for permeability. You know this from reading the graph, and you know some other things as well. So we have to come down here somewhere. He's going to give us the I presume he gives us the analysis equation. Okay, there's that. And nobody ever gives the analysis equation. Yeah, here we go. All right. So here's how you would estimate pore volume. You would have the time match point and the rate match point, and you'd have all these other things that you use to estimate that. Here's how you would estimate permeability. You solve for KH. You have the time match point, or sorry, the rate match point here. You have the rate hole that you poke with a pen, and you have the dimensionless rate that you poke. So you'd have this from the plot, and you'd have that from the plot. Okay, these are match points. So this is where you poke the hole in these things. Okay, this is what you want to solve for, KH or K. You have this from the stem that you read off of. That's what I just said. Was it 10 or 100 in our example? Okay, so if nothing else changes, what's the difference between 10 or 100? And before you say a factor 10, wrong, because it's a logarithm. So it would be as a log of 10, right? So in that case, it would be a multiplier. Am I right? Would it be a log of 10? Yes.
If he is assuming constant pressure, why do they have initial pressure?
Oh, because this calculation, volume is always referred back to initial conditions. Great question. So you have to have some evidence of depletion. And depletion is, if you assume, obviously the initial state, initial pressure, current state, PWF, you have to have that. Thanks for bringing that up. The same thing will be true when we go through my stuff, but it's implicit because we work in pressure. So, thanks. That's a great question, probably the best question of the whole day. That's critical. You must know where you are in the pressure curve. Yeah.
Re-explain question and answer.
Sorry?
Re-explain question.
Okay, his question is, why is there a pressure drop term in equation 6? Because we're solving for volume. There must, it's part of the intrinsic equation, of course, but there must be a term there. And actually, it's over here as well in 5, because that's part of the dimensionless rate function. In order to make the type curve, we had to use pressure drop. It's that simple. So the difference in using the logarithm of 10 or the logarithm of 100 will be a multiplier. Let's do a quick test, just so everybody...
Constant.
Sorry?
Delta constant.
Yes, by definition, in his case, PWF is constant. Impulse control. You're almost as bad as me. No comprende? Okay, so the way we're going to do this is we'll say it's equal to ln of 10 minus 1/2. Can I do it that way? So the difference will be a factor, in this case, of 2. So if we, all other things being equal, and I can't promise that everything else is going to be equal, but because you're going to change the shift a bit whenever you're going from one or the other. But if you shift, if your observation is it's either 10 or 100, this will be the ratio of difference. But in order to get there, you'll have to shift, so it'll actually be magnified. I couldn't give you a direct number without being specific on the case, but a difference between assuming 1 or 100, or sorry, 10 or 100 will be at least this much, okay? It could be more, well, it'll definitely be more, probably on the order of 5 or 6. So, making a change in that means you're shifting the data, so a change from 10 to 100 could be a factor of 6 instead of 5 or 6 in calculated variability. I just want you guys to understand, you're going, well, that's still pretty close. I'm okay with that. You're going to have cases in your career where just being in the ballpark is okay. I went through a case today, a very complicated case where somebody had done a bunch of modeling and wanted to try to ground truth it with data after the fact. And I don't know how, but we nailed it. It was a beautiful data set. You just don't see these very often. But the problem is the interpretation took a nasty turn, and I kept trying to force the variability to be much higher than it was. And the reason was we had made a mistake in another part of the model input. And it dawned on me because of my experience, not because of my expertise, but my experience, that we were going the wrong direction. So we went back and looked at the data and found out where we'd made a mistake and put that in. Bang! Everything lined up. Once we went back and corrected everything. But balancing skin, balancing permeability, balancing what things are supposed to look like, you can do that. But if you're trying to analyze production data and you're expecting to get a permeability estimate that is 7 decimals, it ain't going to happen. And you're going, well, how are you going to test this on that? I'll figure out a way.
So do you usually need it to, let's say, 2 or 3 decimals?
No. Just moving the mouse a hair is going to change 20%. That's how sensitive these calculations are. That's an exaggeration, but it'll moving the mouse just a bit will change the estimate 5-10%, no problem. When we test on this, we give a pretty big range. Now, on the other hand, you should get an answer within that range. If I give you an exam and I say, okay, pick this value, it's between 10 2 and 4, and you calculate 6. Whose fault is it? Mine or yours? Well, your obvious answer is it's probably not between 2 and 4. All right? So do you overanalyze that, or do you pick between 5 and 7 as your answer? You guys are lost. You've already read what I'm going to do. Okay? So you're going to make the calculation. You come out with 6.5, and I give you a range of 5 to 7. Okay? You're not going to put the answer in a range of 2 to 4. You're not going to pick that option. But if you made a mistake and the answer is between 2 and 4, you need to recheck your interpretation. I told you guys, every single time somebody does a pressure change analysis for the first time, somebody in class invariably analyzes the wrong machine because they did not approach it diagnostically. There are false trends all over the place. I'm not going to do that to you. Not intentionally. It may happen. My goal is to test your ability to draw a straight line. My goal is not to test your ability to calculate something in 7 decimal places or to make absolutely certain that you can, well, it is to follow instructions, but guilty. It should be relatively straight. And yes, you're going to have an exam.
It is no longer their evaluation.
No, I will send a note. It will be an exam, and it'll be released on the 9th or the 10th. And you'll have a 3-day window to take it.
For how long? 3 hours?
3 hours.
Yeah.
And you'll enter your answers on the computer,
Okay.
and you'll send me the your scanned sheet. But you need to send it immediately. Comprende?
Can you give 10 minutes to
That's
run to
not
the
necessarily-
library and scan, use their scanner?
I don't mean,
Within the
it
exam time.
doesn't have to be instantaneous. I know with you, I'll end up with a photograph of each page. Don't do that, by the way. I have had people do that. I mean, maybe that's a good idea. I could force you to send a picture of yourself taking the test, but then there's probably all sorts of unpleasantries in the photos, you know. That's how the camera thing works, right? The Proctor program? Yeah.
Probably not using it for this one.
No, I'm not gonna, this is gonna be brain dead simple. You take tests, you enter numbers into e-learning, you email me tests, okay? That's how it's gonna work. Yeah, well, it's gotta be that simple. And I will say that you better put all your work on the test, because I'm gonna go back and check against the answers. And if the answers are not supported by work on the test,
Do the rest of it.
no. Go ahead.
I don't really ask about the test and all, but, I mean, it's kind
You'll
of...
be like the 6th person today, go ahead.
Well, no, I don't know if I'm asking, but it's just a concern that, you know, we haven't done any problems.
We got another 4 days. The world was created, so it'll be fine.
Oh, I hope so. I have to say,
Yeah, it's just a concern.
That's why you have 11 hours between on FaceTime.
That's really...
But you guys need to kind of leave me alone. Takes a few days to write the damn thing. I started writing it on Saturday, and I had a conniption fit whenever I realized you had another week. And it was going to be an assignment. No, it was going to be an assignment, and that would be a completely different vehicle. You'd have 3 or 4 days or 5 days to work on it. Now I got to completely redesign myself. And I had several hours of conversation with these EL people trying to make sure that these things are secure and everything else. So Flintstone's version, you take tests, you enter tests on computer, you take some tests. That's my security system.
Driller sheet.
Yeah, anybody break something, Tom crush, okay?
So we have to have this plug printed out or something?
What it'll be is I will give you probably 10 to 12 pages. It'll probably be 12 because there'll probably be a cover sheet where you enter your answers, and also the honesty statement. Actually, the honesty statement it'll probably be 13 pages, because there'll be a honesty statement with your name on it, there'll be the other page with the answers on it, and then, or maybe I'll integrate the two, I don't know. And then there'll be a cover sheet explaining what you can and can't do, and then there'll be the problems. And you must turn in exactly what I give you. No extra sheets, no writing on the back, no nothing. You will have to work the problem on those 10 pages.
But we have to put the answers on the...
You have to put the answers on the page, and probably also, I think it'd be a good idea if you transferred them to the front page and bubbled in something there. I think mechanically, that's a better idea. I mean, if you disagree, that's fine.
So are we scanning the answers, or are we
Oh, I
clicking the
thought
answers?
that the answers would have been like in the software or something.
Okay, look,
I'm sorry.
but I still want it on the page.
Okay, that's
Okay, so I'm just gonna,
I understand.
I mean, we're having too much discussion about something that doesn't exist yet, so let me just show you what I'm thinking. This is what I'm thinking. All right?
Crush.
You have problem one, da 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 da, everything is written here, and then down here is the answer. And the answer is, let's say, in feet, okay? You write your number. And then there's a radio button that says between 0 and, X is between 0 and 2. X is between, you guys get good one on one. This was what took a long time today. Between 2 and 4. X is between 4 and 6. Okay? And then you polish it in that button and you say that's that. You just, we'll put the buttons on the page so you can do that too. Then you go to e-learning. This is how I plan to do it. Now Ted may want to do it differently. He may want to actually put the test on e-learning. That's fine. I don't care about that. You cannot work the test on e-learning. You must work the test on the pages of paper.
No.
Yeah.
You have to write it.
So you give me the answers, and then there'll be whatever. Now what Sam wants is he wants A to be none of the below, and this will be B, C, D. Is that how it goes?
E is a E for all of the above.
And then E for all of the above.
I'm looking at the two choices.
That won't work.
Yeah.
B, C, A, D.
There'll be enough.
So at the end, we're gonna be graded by these results.
You'll be graded by this result, but I will go back and check and look at people's answers. Later, not initially, and I'll cross-check everything. I'll sit down and reverse check it. If there's an error that is substantive, I'll
To get perfect.
make adjustments for it, yeah. But what it really tells you, and I will go over this again and again, and by Thursday evening, you're gonna hear this for the 1,000th time, show all your work. Show all your work. Last time, no work, no credit, no matter what. I don't care if your answers are perfect. All I can assume is Jeffrey did it and gave it to everybody else. No, that would not be the right assumption, but. Okay,
So if we run out of time, there's no point in just blindly answering.
you won't run out of time. You will run out of patience, you'll run out of ideas, you'll run out of something. Yeah.
Not too late.
My goal is not time. My goal is you work this thing on your own and show to me that you know what you're doing and everybody will be happy. Now, if you want a challenge, you tell me how I'm going to prepare a test that has exactly 10 pages and you have to work the whole thing out on each page. You tell me how to do that.
Don't forget the big writers.
Hmm?
I said, don't forget the people that write large.
Yeah, well, that'll be their problem.
That's gonna be 4,000 and
Sorry?
It's gonna be open book and
Yeah, it'd be open book,
like the notes and stuff.
yeah.
And I was mentioning the previous question, the plot.
The plots we get, everything we get.
So we have to like match something, it's gonna be.
I don't know, I'm thinking about it. That would, tonight, that's beyond the scope of what I wanna do, but in reality, that's within the scope of what I wanna do. So maybe I do something simple.
And you have a type for.
I would have to add a page,
Or the equation.
it would have to be, yeah.
Come on, guys, hasn't written it yet.
But they're asking all the right questions.
Like,
Because that's exactly what I'm
to
thinking
print out
about.
the classes.
But after this, you know, I will not discuss the construction phase. You know,
We don't want to know.
I mean, and even now, I'm gonna get a bunch of phone calls or emails. What did you mean by this or that? I'm not answering any questions about these things.
How long do
Because
we-
I would get drowned like I did today. Yeah.
How long do we have to do what's the final date? We have
Personally, if you're not graduating, I'm okay with letting it run until the 14th or the 15th, but I think that's gonna be logistically a bad idea. Let me see. Personally, the 14th is the day when it's due for the final exam for this course. The question is, what's gonna happen on the night of the 14th? Okay, we've got 2 people graduating, which I'll handle separately. We've got a couple of other people who have, let's just say, already made it clear that, you know, they've got circumstances that are out of their control that have to be dealt with, and that's fine. I'm not gonna do any harm with that. But everybody else, you know, I would really like to get this done and get it in. And I know you're all going, well, hell, the grades aren't due until the 19th, just make it the 18th. I don't think that's a good idea. I think that will cause people to put this off, it will cause people to act desperately, which leads to other things that we won't discuss. So probably I'm leaning towards the 14th. But the people who are graduating, their grade must be submitted on basically the 14th. That's early 15th.
They have to take it before that.
Sorry?
They have to take it before that.
Correct, and I know who they are, at least
And they know who they are.
sort of, they know who they are. So, I really don't understand how when I put in an email, if you're graduating, contact me immediately, and people don't, you know, you're listening, you know, I'll send a note again, if you're graduating, contact me immediately, so I'll know, but I don't know what to say. This is always my big paranoia, because the last thing I want to do is,
If they're being stupid, then they
it's
deserve.
not stupid, it's just their mind's elsewhere.
Really.
Or, you know, they just aren't really paying attention, so, and that happens.
That's their fault.
All right, so no more questions about this. Everything will be on it. You know, I'll send an email tonight, but everything you need will be on it. You'll have a window. I don't know what that window will be. It'll probably be 3 hours, but it may be more. You know, I got no problem with that. If I give you 6 hours, or 8 hours, or 10 hours, it's not gonna matter. You're either gonna be able to do it or not. You know, you'll see. Should be quite straightforward. All right.
Yeah, 3 hours. 3 hours.
All I can tell you is I don't think looking at old material is going to help you. If you're going to invest your time in that, that would probably be a mistake. There may be certain aspects, I mean, there are going to be old tests and old material floating around. But if you're going to focus on that, that's probably a mistake. I can't swear that it is, but it's probably a mistake. No, I mean, I don't know what I'm going to ask. I may ask a variation of something I've done before. There's only so many ways you can ask for a straight line on a piece of paper. So, maybe I could make it a mirror image or something and say, you know, please plot points backwards. I do not believe I'll ask you to plot anything on this because that could be a disaster. But we'll see. All right. It's been a long day, especially for you. Any other closure comments before we go? Like an auction. So, thank you for letting us use your drive. What is this thing that says delete all files?
We got that up on there. I don't have that stuff there.
You wanted to use this file because you're hoping a little writing that came with it.
Well, I found out later that this little writing thing is for a different kind of tablet.
That's what that is.
Yeah, he didn't want an iPad, because he wanted to sing the song, I Ain't Got No iPad.
We're at, tomorrow at noon, 7, is that right?
Sorry?
Tomorrow at noon, 7?
Tomorrow at noon and at 7, yeah. I need to put it in my calendar before I forget.
What happens in between?
What?
Whatever.
No.
I mean, like, why do we always meet at night?
To be honest, because during the day, something comes up, like it did today. Step out.